Very welcome along to another episode of the Tackle Sport Podcast. It's Daniel here, joined as always by my brother Sean. Sean, how's it going?
All good.
Not too bad, Sean. We're for some weird scheduling reason this evening. We're going up against the best hour on football television and M&F, 7 to 8 p.m. before the M&F game. It's big boots to fill here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I see they've Calvert Lewin on as well. So it's always hard to replace Gary Neville and Carragher together, but it's always good when they get an insight from a professional footballer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, for those watching live, we won't take it personally if you do follow on the podcast. It will be available on all podcast apps. And if you are watching live, do hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So yeah, to suppose, Sean, on the weekend's action, I guess there's no place to start. Like, and if going into the Spurs United game, you think the storyline coming out of that game would have been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in some capacity, but yeah, Spurs moved very quickly. They saw Antonio Conte was available, and at the time of recording here Monday at about 7 o'clock, it's looking likely that he's going to take over at Spurs. Your initial kind of reaction to that, and how big a job is this? Because just looking in, there's a lot wrong with the Spurs side that needs to be addressed ASAP, I think.
Yeah, I think there is no doubt that it's a massive job and it's a bigger job than probably people gave credit for during the summer with Nuno. I think it's clearly known that he wasn't their first choice. I don't think he was their fourth or fifth choice either. So he was always going to be up against it. And Tottenham have this idea, or people have this idea that Tottenham always play good football, and their attack they're free flowing and they can see goals. And even under Jose Mourinho, they had that ability to flick it on like a switch. I mean, I think with Southampton they hockeyed early on in the season last year, and then they hockeyed United at Old Trafford. So they had those performances in them. With this Nuno side, it didn't look like there was ever going to be a performance like that out of them, really. And to the opposite, a couple of times this season they've got battered. They got battered really at Palace, at home to Chelsea, at home to United. They were really poor in the derby against Arsenal. Um, and the performances in the European Conference League didn't fill you with much hope either. So it, it it was kind of destined to fail, really. Not being early. It had been well known that he wasn't one of their early choices, which is never a good sign. And I thought on Saturday it became untenable really for him. I thought that was it. And with the reaction of the fans, with the reactions of the players, the booing of Harry Kane, for example, just things that you wouldn't have expected to see really. Um, it just became untenable very, very quickly, and they were manager of the month. And I think people started to think maybe Nuno could get a tune out of them, but that kind of pragmatism only lasts a certain amount of time. Certainly when you have a squad of with the attacking embarrassments that Tottenham have, because you look at it, that the squad is probably cutting too. They're offensively very, very strong. They have a lot of very good players, and then in the midfield and in defence, they've spent a lot of money over the last couple of years, but they haven't signed anyone really that's done well and become a regular. Since that stable back four that had of Walker and Trippier, and you had Vertonghen and Alderweireld and Danny Rose or Ben Davies, a left back. It just they haven't been able to replace that in any kind of way, and they really are at the moment a team that I think if they got Conte, it'd be a massive plus, because I don't think they're necessarily at the minute a top six side in terms of performances over the last while. But that being said, they're getting Antonio Conte, who's a top four manager, really. There's no doubt about that, having won the league at Chelsea. And he came in very quickly with Chelsea and struggled for the first while, and then just found a system, that five at the back, that he was kind of slow to adopt in England. But with the Tottenham squad, it does feel like five at the back might suit some of their players and might get the best again out of Kane and Son, and produce a team that is difficult to play against, because Tottenham aren't difficult to play against at the moment, and defensively they are they are all over the place. Like I said, despite having signed a lot of players for big money.
Yeah, like a comment here from James Moe, Spurs fan and regularly listen to Tackling Sport podcasts. Saying Spurs' recruitment has been awful over the last few years, and I say post Poch, like Poch left because Spurs weren't backing him essentially. Well, I know there's a combination of reasons there, but you look at the recruitment that's been brought in since, and it hasn't lived up to that expectation at all. It's essentially like Pochettino's squad, like the majority of that starting 11. And it's just like not like necessarily an agent squad, but almost a stale squad, and they need like new blood, that sort of thing. with Conte, what sort of players do you think that will entice that? I saw a few parody accounts tweeting saying Antonio Conte's first target signing is Victor Moses. I had to click to double check as a parody, but he is going to be looking for that back five. I take it sort of players. And one interesting point you made as well to me earlier, Sean, about Nuno is that back five thing as well, like you said. And he was obviously probably told by Daniel Levy to play a back four, but I guess Conte would obviously just rule roost here, and he can play whatever formation he wants at United or Spurs.
Yeah, that was a big worry I saw kind of quickly with Nuno, is how, for his whole time at Wolves, really, bar the end of it, where it did kind of get a little bit stale, and it was probably right that both Wolves and Nuno moved on during the summer. That back five was his go-to. It's his bread and butter. He instilled a very good defensive system in them first and foremost. And at Tottenham, that was the one thing that I thought if they could get right, because they're just at the moment, none of them defenders, I don't think, can play in a back four. I don't think you trust any of them really to defend in a one-on-one situation. And that was, I think, his biggest failing. And I think that was probably to do with the fact that, if you're Nuno and you come into Tottenham as, like I said, fourth or fifth choice, and you go five at the back straight away, and all of a sudden the fans are thinking, what have we got here? We want to see. We've been used to Pochettino, we've been used to Mourinho, and we're used to seeing Harry Kane and Son, and there've been loads of goals and loads of chances created. And when you go five at the back, that immediately is a kind of a sense of, not fear, but I think it will stick with Tottenham fans. So that was something that I thought straight away. He was on a bit of a hiding to nothing there. But with Conte, I think no doubt that the five at the back will come in, and I think will suit Tottenham a little bit more. The areas they're weak in, I think it's clear to say, is in midfield at the moment, trying maybe to find a partner for Højbjerg. They've gone through a huge array of players in the last few years in that position, and the back five, in particular, I think their fullbacks against United were really poor. Ben Davies was, abysmal, and he's played well at times for Wales, and times in the past for Tottenham in a five at the back, and kind of playing as a left-sided centre half at times for Wales, or also as a left wing back. But I thought in the four they were really appalling. I thought Romero was okay. I think he's got a little bit about him that you'd like. I just don't think Eric Dyer is the perfect partner for him there. And Emerson got on the ball quite well. Again, no real end product from him, and he didn't make a lot of decisive runs, and it was kind of just almost in the way of Son at times. So if they could get a system right, and I think no doubt Conte will bring a huge belief to the Spurs fans and to the Spurs players. I mean, I was thinking earlier when Mauricio Pochettino was there and Harry Kane was, probably the best striker in the world, and Mourinho came in, and I think it was on the Amazon documentary that he was going to make him, this beast, and he was going to turn him into a Drogba and become the best striker in the world. And if you're Conte now, you're probably coming in and telling them, look what I've done with Lukaku in the past. Look what I did with Diego Costa. I'm going to make you the best striker in the world, Harry Kane. And all in Harry Kane's mind, he's just thinking, well, like 4 years ago under Pochettino, I was the best striker in the world. So, what's happened to me? And that's a really interesting point, because it was very noticeable that the Tottenham fans turned on Kane. They turned on the players and the management. It was a really weird last half an hour of that game. It felt like Spurs were on a hiding to nothing, but Harry Kane really took a lot of the brunt, and he gave the ball away, and you could see he was trying to win it back. And it must be hard for him, because he's had so many good years at Spurs, but it does feel like he's ruined it. The whole saga playing out, the interview he did with Gary Neville, the kind of the flirting he did, and obviously Daniel Levy hasn't helped him there if there was a gentleman's agreement. But that being said, the Spurs fans in the back of their mind will still think of Harry Kane as he wants to leave. He doesn't want to be there. And we do feel sorry for Kane in a way, because, like I said, he's had brilliant years at Spurs, but there is that element of when he underperforms now, the Spurs fans have it in their head that, he wanted to go. And I think Conte can come back in and add a bit of life to that Tottenham side, but I think it will be a bigger job than probably he anticipates. But I'm sure he'll want to get back in, not only to football, but back into English football. And I think this is a good job for him, because I don't think he'd get any of the other top, the historical top six club jobs. He's not getting the Liverpool job or the City job anytime soon. He's probably not getting the Chelsea one. United, I'm not sure would he work there. There is that talk. And, I can't see him being an Arsenal manager anytime soon. So I think it is a good time for him to get back in and, get his teeth back into English football, because he had a good record here.
Yeah.
Or there even, sorry, there.
Yeah, Jim, finally, we're going to move on to Ollie here, and it's a good comment there in a second. But Jim's final one, Harry Kane's turn into Joe Linton. Pat Nevins used to do analysis, or still does analysis off the ball, and he would always call him Linton when he first started burst onto the scene, which implies that he thinks his name's Joe Linton as opposed to Joe Linton in the second name. Always make me laugh, and I honestly can't look at Pat Nevin when he's doing analysis and not think of that moment. But a few comments on YouTube. Appreciate the comments coming in, guys. But there was one that we wanted to get to, and to be fair, this is a good segue onto the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer situation, Sean. And you kind of touched on it with Conte and not working at Manchester United. And look, and we discussed this at the start of the season. You were very sure that there was no way Ole was going to get sacked, because he's basically a front for the ownership and the green and gold to the Club of Soul campaign. There's that's died down as a result of the Ronaldo signings, as a result of the Sancho signings, and all the transfer business for Iran as well. You do think that they've potentially missed the boat here, and it's almost like Spurs are reacting to what Manchester United are doing. Not too dissimilar with the Ronaldo signing, with United pinching him off City. But Sean Tracy here, who's playing for Cooler yesterday, comment saying, sick, Nuno played tougher opponents than Ole and got the sack before him. How have United done this again? Yeah, I'd say as a United fan, I know it's kind of tough with a club legend. I'm trying to kind of get parallels myself with Arsenal, but like, it is frustrating now because I don't see an out-of-work manager outside of Zidane, who's already kind of, the rumors are he's not interested. He doesn't speak English as well. An out-of-work manager that's going to work at United. So realistically, it's going to be Ole to the end of the season. Now, I can see them going on a run. For example, I can see them beating Atalanta. A lot of people will listen to this after that game, but I can see them getting a good result there. If they beat City, they're level on points with them, which is incredible. But I can see this happening a lot, where they just paper over the cracks. And maybe get to a quarterfinal Champions League this year and fourth place, maybe 5 or 6 points clear of an Arsenal or hopefully, or a West Ham potentially. Is that enough for Manchester United fans? Or like, it's just frustrating because I can't see any way out and how it doesn't end up being Ole Gunnar, provided there's not another 5-0 at home to a rival club, for example.
Well, as soon as Spurs sacked Nuno, I mean, the attention turns from Nuno and giving out about the style of play into what is going on behind the scenes, and what is going on that we've sacked a manager 10 games in, and where we are. Anytime you sack a manager, the attention goes from the players and the management into what's coming next, who's in charge, who's making these decisions, who sacked them. So I think if say, for example, United were to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, which I don't think will happen unless it gets very drastic. Now, I thought Liverpool 5-0 was drastic, but I think it'd have to get a little bit worse than that. As soon as you sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the attention, and everyone from pundits, people in the press, journalists, are going from the manager, talking about the manager, into talking about who's making these decisions, who's actually sacked Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what is the plan for United. So I think if you're the Glazers and you've had probably a disastrous 15 months really from the pandemic and coming into the Super League and the fiasco around that, and you're not on great terms with United fans anyway, and they've tried to slowly implement a few things around Old Trafford and put a small bit of money into the stadium and all this kind of thing, you're just pushing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer out in front of you. You're going, let him take all the responsibility. He's going to take the hit. The United fans aren't really going to twist on him. Certainly not the Stretford End fans, and certainly not the core Manchester United fans. I think a lot of people will maybe want Ole to go, but I don't think it will ever get quite nasty with him. So I think if you're the Glazers, you're just sitting there and saying, yeah, you take all this, the brunt of it. We're going to let it die down. We might have a contingency plan in the background. But now, like I said, as soon as Spurs sack Nuno, it goes to Daniel Levy, it goes to their new sporting director, and you're looking around going, who is making these decisions? And there was rumblings of chance that they wanted Levy out during the United game, the Tottenham fans did. And I think like I said, it's the simple idea for the Glazers to just sit there and say, yeah, Ollie, you take the brunt of it, you deal with the pressure, and when it all dies down, we'll make another big name managerial appointment. We'll sign another big player. We'll extend Ronaldo's contract, or they'll do something like that. But at the moment, they're very happy, I think, to just sit in behind Ollie, and they've backed him this summer. They gave him Sancho, Varane, and Ronaldo. they finished second last year. Your immediate reaction is to get into a right title race now. That's the bare minimum. And you're the Glazers, you don't sit there until it becomes, like Nuno did on Saturday, untenable. And I don't think Ollie's going anytime soon. It's going to be interesting for him because, for how much it worked against Tottenham, I think Tottenham were very naive and they never got going. And I don't necessarily think it was a master stroke, if you like. But how you can have Rashford, Greenwood, and Sancho sitting on the bench for the whole of the season now. I know there's a lot of European football and Cavani and Ronaldo aren't going to play every game together, but I don't see a scenario where that can happen again.
Just
So
on the
it is an
commentary,
interesting time for
yeah.
Solskjaer.
Just even on this, because I do want to get into the formation, and there's another comment on this. The comments are trending well, lads, with the topics, so keep them coming. They're doing well. But Sean Tracy again, like Ollie's future rests on the league form and getting top four, and that's it essentially. If United get top four, there's no way, like you said, Ole Gunnar's gonna get sacked. But if they do finish fifth, you realistically he's probably gone, isn't he? At the end of the season, if they only get Europa League, is it that's it? Because the examples here, Van Gaal missed Champions League and goal difference, sacked. Jose drifted from the top four, ultimately sacked then the following season.
Yeah, I think Champions League is a must.
So that's the non-negotiable for the Glazers.
Yeah, I do think that'll be because you've all these players like Varane, Ronaldo, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Messi and Ronaldo over the coming years, but I think they'll just go from Champions League football to nothing. I don't think Ronaldo would touch his brand or touch off the Europa League, for example. So,
well,
yeah,
if they finish third in
well, that
League
is
group, I'm very excited by that proposition.
yeah,
But go on.
that
And sorry, and Varane, I've seen tweets going, I can't believe we're going to make Champions League Varane play on Thursday nights.
yeah. So it's yeah, I think that could be one of the key, and maybe what would soften that is a cup win or something, or a big cup win, if you know what I mean, or a late run in this year's Champions League. But I think if they miss the top four, then I think you would be asking questions. But like I said, if that happens, then the attention goes from Solskjaer back onto the Glazers and back onto the future of Manchester United. And I don't think whatever happens with Solskjaer, I don't think it's going to be a rash decision. I think it's going to be worn. It's going to be a decision worn from time and from a slump in form, as opposed to, like, if they don't sack him after 5-0 to Liverpool, I don't think they're going to sack him until it becomes, like I said, very untenable.
There's a
But
precedent.
Champions League, yeah, Champions League is a must.
Yeah, so I maybe in a comment here from Connor, and it's kind of funny. He was saying Connor Swords on YouTube. So guys, United saw success from moving to the Conte formation essentially, and then ultimately that sacked Nuno, and now they're going to get Conte. And a lot of United fans tweeting, "We may have won the game, but Spurs have won the war here on Antonio Conte." It is kind of funny, but on that back three, right? And I will qualify this by saying, first goal is crucial, particularly in a game like that. And Spurs did have a goal ruled out for offside. If that goes in 1-0, I don't know if United get back into the game necessarily. However, overall, I thought the formation did work well. Ronaldo scored a wonder goal. Ronaldo, Cavani, could they play up there with each other every week? Maybe not, but you can always bring a Rashford in there. That formation, and I know you made the point there, Sean, that like Sancho, Rashford, Greenwood aren't in the team. That's probably unsustainable. But have they stumbled upon a formation now that they can, right, we won't do what we did against Liverpool. We're going to use this formation for the big games, maybe Atalanta, maybe Manchester City, and let's find a way to maybe, press a Burnley at home or whatever.
Yeah, I think 5 at the back, and I think they'll play it against City. I'm not sure how they'll play against Atalanta. I think they'll might go back to a 4-3-3, or maybe even a 5-2-3, and have an extra attacking player up there, because Atalanta give you a lot of space in behind them, and I think to really hurt them, I think 3 would be the way to go against them. It's what Liverpool did, and they battered them last season in the Champions League. But on the formation, I think it just got the best out of a few players. I think Scott McTominay's his best position is probably a box-to-box midfielder. I don't think he's the best sitting and holding midfielder and trying to control the tempo of a game, but I thought he was very good when he got into the box. And we've seen it in the past from where he can pop up and get a goal, or you've seen it a little bit at times with Scotland. I know he's played centre back as well, but when he's a bit more commanding and when he's in the box, he's a bit of a goal threat. And I think when him and Fred are sitting in there in the back four, their job is ultimately to protect Maguire and Lindelof. Whereas when there's 3 and Varane, they were a lot more offensively forward. And I think that was one of the key takeaways I got from Solskjaer's interview after the game, was how he said McTominay was unplayable. And, I think that was one of the key metrics for him that might decide whether they go to three at the back in future, was how well McTominay played. But against Atalanta, I think they'll go with an extra attacking player. But certainly against City, I don't think it'll be a bad idea to play against them, because I think five at the back against Liverpool would kill you, because their fullbacks get so much space. Liverpool, they would, in that five at the back formation. But against City, when their wing backs come in a little bit and everything's played in and around that, the edge of the 6-yard box and the 18-yard box, that kind of 10 or 15-yard area, I think that's where you get your extra defender in there. But against Liverpool, against a side like Liverpool, I don't think you would play a five at the back there. So it'd be interesting to hear how Ollie goes with it. I'm not sure if he'll continue with the five at the back every week, but I think it'll be something he'll have in the back of his locker now, and he has done in the past in Champions League games where he switched from 4 to 5. But personnel, I think they need an extra attacking player up there. And when you have Bruno Fernandes, he's not a wide forward, if you like, so he always has to play. And then you play Ronaldo, and there's only one attacking option up there. Whereas you play 4 and you play Bruno, you can get three attacking players as well as him. So that'd be what I would go against Atalanta. But against City, I'd be playing 5 at the back.
Yeah, and final thing on this, and it's kind of Sean's kind of reference here in the comment, but the Donny van de Beek, and actually, Jesus, he's actually coming with another comment here, which is perfect. Donny's played 6 minutes of Premier League football this season, not a minute after his best game against West Ham, the Carabao Cup. And Gary Neville, in fairness, made this point that Jadon Sancho could end up as the next Donny van de Beek. Is that a live possibility? Because Jesus, it's bad. It's tough enough pressure, big enough pressure coming into a club like Manchester United for whatever they paid for him to play right wing. But when you get dropped after 2 or 3 games where he was mediocre, but he showed signs. But at times he's playing on the left, Sancho here. You're not building the team around, and we all know what happened there. United had a plan for Jadon Sancho, right winger. They needed a right winger, and you maybe have Rashford off the left. They're playing attacking formation. Problem was Cristiano Ronaldo came in, and what that did is essentially a lot of things moving parts, but it's kind of pushed Jadon Sancho out of the team. So all of a sudden, not only is he out of the team, but when he is in the team, it's not built for him. He's got to adapt to it. For example, if he was to come on against Spurs, where was he going to come on and play? You know what I mean? So I don't know what they're going to do here. Maybe it's their job for Jadon Sancho in the home games, but you still need to accommodate Cristiano Ronaldo. And on the Donny van de Beek, because it's linked the two of them, he's the case and example where for some reason at times you look at United, and we spoke about it last week, saying maybe Donny was an answer for midfield, or at least given a go. You consider the options or the chances other players have had. But on Jadon Sancho in particular, Sean, I'm thinking he's in massive trouble at United, just because I don't see a role for him in the team as long as Ronaldo's playing the majority of the games, which ultimately he will, won't he?
Yeah, I think Sancho will come good, and I think it will open up for him a little bit.
He's too good. He's too good not to.
Yeah,
Right.
he's too good, and I agree with Connor's point there that he would be lost at seeing a 5-3-2. It doesn't suit. I don't think it suits United long term.
Yeah.
You look at their 3 most their 3 youngest and best attacking players, Rashford, Greenwood, and Sancho, and that's a front 3 you'd really want to see. But they're not players who could. Any of them, I think, would play well in a 2 up front. So that's something that I think we will see open up a slight bit more. Look, on Donny van de Beek, it's one of them. I think we'll look back on this in 3 or 4 years, and it'll be like a mystery. It feels like a kind of a Man City signing or a Chelsea signing, where they've just gone out and spent the money, and then 2 or 3 years go by, and you forget they played for Chelsea or they played for City. And
just because before I forget it, Sean, if you go on to another point, remember we spoke when he signed Van de Beek, and you said you weren't particularly sure where he was going to play in that United team 18 months ago, or whenever he signed first.
Yeah, and he came to United as with Dion as well, probably one of the most exciting midfielders in Europe and European football. I mean, he was unbelievable for Ajax, and they really kind of, not stole a march, but became a big powerhouse again in European football for a couple of years with that young side that they had, and now he can't get into the Dutch squad. And when you're looking at him, like every time you play now, he's kind of like, it's almost as if he has to score a hat trick to kind of take any notice. And it stinks of a Mourinho as well kind of signing where Mourinho's Ole Solskjaer or Gunnar Solskjaer is making a big deal about it. Like it's clear he never signed Van de Beek. He didn't want a part of it, but the club forced it to sign. They kind of thought it was a great deal, and obviously by signing Van de Beek, it meant no one else could sign him. But it does feel like a Mourinho kind of thing where, look, I didn't sign him, I don't want him. You know, Mourinho with Matt Doherty kind of thing. Like, I want nothing to do with him. I don't want to know. And he's been shoved out, and he's been forced, Van de Beek, to not play minutes, to miss out for his country. And there was talk him. I think we wanted a loan move. I think it might have been Everton or someone that were linked with him towards the end of the transfer window. And it's just and I think that the link came there with Marcel Brands, the Everton director of football, and like that's where it's gone to now. And to think that he was the up and coming young central midfielder with Frankie de Jong, and Frankie de Jong has gone on to Barca, and obviously look, Barca aren't shooting the lights out, but he's playing minutes, and Van de Beek he must be crying out for minutes. And it's look,
I'd say it's raging. I'd say it's absolutely raging.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all these videos coming out of him, running after the end of a game, and him waiting to be brought on as a sub and looking down the line. And yeah, it does. I don't think it sits well with anyone, and that would be my one biggest worry, or my one criticism of Solskjaer really, is that I think he tried to make a point to the United hierarchy that this wasn't his sign, and he wanted nothing to do with him. He might have wanted, for all we know, he might have wanted a Declan Rice or that type of midfielder, and they went with Van de Beek, and he doesn't look like a huge United player. I think Van de Beek has to kind of play in a structured system as a kind of with someone like a license, and you think of how well he could do with a City or an Arsenal, or how he would do with Barcelona, teams like this. But at the moment, it's just not working for him at United, and it's I think it'll just be one of them signings. Like United have had a few in the past, Falcao, Di Maria, where it just hasn't worked. Chelsea have had a few in the past like that, and it's just like you're waiting for it to end now with Van de Beek. It must be his biggest nightmare. And it's also another one, right? If you're a Declan Rice, right, and I've thought of this in the last while, right? If you're a Declan Rice and people are saying you got to leave West Ham, and Declan Rice is the club, or he's not the club captain, but he's the Premier League captain. He's starting every game, he's playing every minute, and you're looking at someone like Jack Grealish, and Grealish hasn't had the best start to his City career, and Jack Grealish, when he was at Villa, probably thought, Man City, everything's rosy there. Like, you could sign for a club and it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And if you're Declan Rice, you're comfortable at West Ham, you're comfortable in the surroundings you are. You move somewhere else, you don't know how you're going to react. One bad injury and all of a sudden you're gone down. But again, you don't, if you're Declan Rice, get to a stage where Harry Kane is and you're kind of locked in a club. So that kind of career path for Rice, and obviously United would be a perfect club, I think many people would think, from. But that kind of, you don't be caught in that kind of pocket, and Van de Beek is like very much caught in the pocket right now, and where he goes on now, it's taking another couple of years to get up to where he was.
Yeah, and like you can't replicate first team football at the highest level, and in fact he's literally not been playing at all. Final point on Sancho, and I suppose John Tracy here on YouTube's kind of saying, you can't take away from the fact that his performances have been underwhelming, and he's kind of approaching that Sanchez, Di Maria, and look, a lot of the Bundesliga signs we were talking about it last week, don't want to dwell on too long, like Timo and Havertz, Champions League winning goal aside, that they haven't kind of shot the lights out. There's a few more examples from the Bundesliga, Naby Keita to a certain extent. So maybe the clubs outside of the Bayern Munichs aren't up to that level. Maybe when it comes to the Premier League, that's probably too much of a general point. Final thing is notable mentions to Palace getting an incredible win against Manchester City. Chelsea being top of the league by 4 points. I think they are clear. But obviously we've got to finish with a couple of Arsenal fans hosting the podcast to at least talk about Arsenal while we're in a small bit of good form. And you were saying, Sean, it was the Palace game or the Villa game, sorry, maybe the Burnley game. You said you finally think there's a bit of a team there to like as opposed to not being good. It's just a case of you finally have a team to like. the way Ramsdale played that day. And obviously they've kicked that on a small bit, maybe sooner than a lot of people thought. Kind of posed the question. I know Gary Neville lives in my head rent free a small bit, but he did say, and one of his best quotes this season was that he didn't understand Arsenal's transfer strategy this summer, where, to be fair to Arsenal, no matter how bad we did this season, at least people understood we were going for young players and nothing else. But
Yeah, I think there's certain times when like it's a really dire state to be in when you're watching a side and it's happened before. And if you're someone like maybe a Dundalk fan or something, now when you're watching the team and you look and you're kind of comparing it to the European adventure they had, and like Dundalk are nowhere near, and they're seeing Rovers walk the league. And it's probably similar now as an Arsenal fan when you're looking at it, and you're watching the last couple of years just a side of players that you knew were there for the money, you knew didn't really want to be at the club. Your Willians, your Pablo Maris, and all these kind of signings that weren't there was nothing behind it. When you're at now, when you're looking at a team and it's a young side and a lot of players who've come in and worked hard and kind of playing very well, you get back to liking the team and wanting the team to do well, and you can feel that energy around the Emirates. And that's probably mainly down to the two young attacking talents from the Hale End Arsenal Academy. They've kind of given the team a bit of a personality and a bit of an identity to it. And I think United will get to that stage somewhere in the season where they'll just start liking the team and everything will take shape. And Sancho might come good and they'll find a partnership with Greenwood and maybe Ronaldo, and the team will just start taking shape. And I think that's what happens. That's what happened at Arsenal now. And I think it might have happened for Liverpool as well, where they're in between Klopp and Rodgers, and Klopp started to get a few players, and Firmino came in, and then Salah came in, and all of a sudden your starting 11 was the same week in, week out, and you're looking at it going, Mane's working here, Salah's working. This is gonna happen for us. And then it takes a couple of transfer windows, and you bring in Alisson, you bring in Van Dijk, and with Arsenal at the minute, it's like the 11 players at the moment you're looking at. There's nothing wrong with any of them. A lot of them are still very limited. They're not going to win a league, or they're not going to get Champions League, I don't think, this season. But you can build around the core of that 11 players. So, and I think that's what, as an Arsenal fan now, is what I'm most happy about. It's just that team is taking shape. It's not going to happen overnight. But they've a core of players that are 24 and younger. With the likes of maybe Saliba to come back next year, and Gabriel's really developed into the player. I don't think any Arsenal fan was kind of expecting a very imposing centre half, and I just think it's starting to take shape with a few bumps along the way, because there will still be big bumps. But what will concern Solskjaer, I think, at United is, everyone said at the start of the year, and we did it in our league preview, the top four were set in stone: Liverpool, United, City, Chelsea, and people thought we were going to have a four-way title race. And I think Sean made the point earlier, United haven't necessarily played a whole heap of teams yet, and when they did play against Liverpool, they got battered. So you start to open up that kind of worms, and all of a sudden West Ham are playing well. Conte comes into Tottenham and gives them a boost. Then that fourth spot is up for grabs. And I think Solskjaer will be looking over his shoulder, thinking with Arsenal's Arteta there as well. So there's 3 or 4 teams that are just starting to gather around United slightly, and I think that will worry him.
Yeah, I actually think Conte, if he does come in, Spurs, for as bad as they've been performance-wise, they're right up there, aren't they? Like they're, so like he gets them going straight away in a back three, and then gets a few January signings. I see no reason why Spurs can't challenge for that top 4. And like you mentioned, West Ham already. So United could get dragged into a small bit of a top 4 race, and if Arsenal can keep their run going. But I do think they'll eventually, Arsenal will probably fall short of the Champions League, just because there's too many of those good teams. Like you said, we're starting to play well and we're well managed, but there's no reason why West Ham shouldn't finish ahead of us this year, because they seem, if anything, more drilled and longer on their journey, albeit Arsenal probably have, the bigger names, maybe like an Aubameyang as compared to an Antonio. But right now, I know Aubameyang's playing well, but Jesus, Antonio's and even the way Moyes is just managing that, the way Antonio just left him out of the Carabao Cup win against City, left him out of the squad entirely, rest him up, and then he plays so well, and he doesn't even score a goal or an assist, as all his fantasy Premier League owners will know, but he was still amazing for West Ham. So there's so many teams up there. It's going to be very competitive.
What I've liked about Moyes as well is that at different stages, Dawson was in there last year without Bonnet, and that was a partnership that was working, and then Diop played. And this summer they've upgraded in a couple of areas.
Yeah,
Obviously, Zuma coming in,
massive.
just the strength and depth that has. And look, we were talking last year about Sufal probably right back and getting in the team of the season for a lot of teams. And all of a sudden, Ben Johnson has played really well over the last few weeks. And there's that little bit of depth there. Now, there is still a few areas where you'd be looking, and if someone like Ice got injured, or if I know they've strengthened the goalkeeping department, but if there was just a couple of small little injuries and if Antonio went out, now there is goals in that team, but I think Antonio gives them a lot. That would be the one worry, but there's nothing to say they won't stay injury free. And the fact that they're playing Europa League football, they're in the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. I think it's gonna be Moyes' 1,000th game next week, which he's probably where he is now. He's probably the best he's ever been with a side. It's probably the side that he'd be most proud of, and what he's done there, because he kept them up. He kept them up during COVID. COVID came at the right time for West Ham. They could have a bit of a retake, but where they are now, what the job he's done there is phenomenal. Because I thought they'd have a little bit of a dip this season, because it's almost like what Villa are going through, that second season syndrome. The first season you have a bit of success, or you become a top 8 team, or all of a sudden you're thinking of Europe. That next season, when you come back into pre-season, and the mentality of those players have changed, for David Moyes to have them where they are after 10 or 11 games is a fantastic job.
Yeah, you just hope in fear maybe, like, and it's every time they're doing well, you just think that that's their peak now, they're going to come back to the pack, but they just keep going. And final point from Sean Tracy here is there must be said about having a manager kicking the ball, every ball on the touchline, like a Klopp, Arteta, Conte, as opposed to Ollie sitting on his stupid iPad. And I'd go one further that to say, and it's not even just that, it's the press conference, it's the communication with fans. And a lot of non-Arsenal fans will slag Arsenal fans for giving the Arteta all the time, but he does communicate very well in his press conference. He reads the room, and he gets things right in what he says, and that does go a long way. Like, we are in a results business, but to buy yourself some time, you got to communicate well with the fans, but also it gives the fans something to kind of cheer along and, become a little bit more involved. Even Edu doing that interview with Sky, I know it was kind of ridiculed at the time, but at least there was some sort of communication. And so I think having that Jurgen Klopp, that figurehead, Sean, like we've kind of joked about it in for other things in terms of having a big figurehead and a football manager, but it's massive, and their personality is massive. And that's why Pep Guardiola, it's not just his coaching, it's his enthusiasm, it's the way he comes across in press conference. Same with Klopp, same with Thomas Tuchel, though that's slightly different. But these managers are passionate, and it's the kind of new norm. And like, I think that's when Arsene Wenger at the end, our frustration with him was even the touchline. Sometimes you just felt that he wasn't, I don't know, I can't really word this one rightly, but with Arteta, it feels like he celebrates every goal like it's like everything. And in some ways it is, but to every Arsenal fan, it's the way any football fan celebrates a goal. So I think that's massive. And I just think, I think Ollie, if he, like, I feel sorry for him just on a separate point, because he smiles a lot when he's nervous, and that's a nervous tick that can happen to anyone. I feel terrible for him, because he's got, when you smile and you're nervous with us, you've got a few people watching on YouTube, whereas he's got, I don't know, millions and millions of people on him with the camera right pointed out in front of his face. So I do have a bit of sympathy for him, but I agree, you need that massive personality, like Fergie was as well,
But that comes with
experience
and that comes with experience and winning things, I think. And look, that's why I felt it was a big thing last year for them to, and I was banging on this drum, that I thought they had to win the Europa League, and the manner in losing it, they were like, it was a really poor game against Villarreal, and they couldn't get the job done, and the manner of losing on extra time, or losing in penalties, that left a sour taste. And I just think if he had won that, there would have been an element of a little bit more control and a little bit more kind of thing about him.
Yeah, people couldn't throw he hasn't won a trophy yet line at him, which is massive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we'll leave it there, Sean. Anything else to say on the Premier League side of things? We covered most things in a line or two. Or
well, the one thing I would say is, I think we'll have to go back on our Premier League 1 to 20. But I think I had Palace high up there, and the couple of times I've seen Palace this year, they've been mightily impressive, and their summer business has been brilliant. And what they've done is they've taken, they took Anderson, who was on loan from Lyon, I think, at Fulham last year, and they took Mark A, gone from Chelsea after he was very good for Swansea, particularly in the playoff games last year. But in Vieira, they took a massive risk, massive risk. And, the last time they took a risk with De Boer, it didn't work. but it's just they're a breath of fresh air really. And Vieira when some managers suit the club, like Nuno was never going to suit Tottenham, just down to the ground, he was never going to suit them. You think of a Jurgen Klopp with his presence suiting Liverpool, but I just think Vieira suits Crystal Palace down to the ground. That kind of his personality on the field, but what the players they have, and it's just coming together nicely for Palace. And I think what would have, the primary goal there this year for them would have been to stay up. Now I think whoever stays up this year, it's not going to be a massive achievement by whatever manager, because for example, Norwich look like they're guaranteed for the drop. Newcastle look like they're going to be down there. So there's going to be three really poor teams, I think, that go down. But the job Vieira has done in 7 or 8 games to change, or 10 games to change what was quite rigid under Roy Hodgson to a lot more flair and a lot more kind of getting after teams. And they're a side now that I think they're becoming a side that if they're playing, you'd ultimately watch now. And I think that's my biggest compliment, because last year I couldn't tell you that when the last time I watched a Palace game. And I think this year they've become a side that a lot of energy and a lot of very good young players. And you look at the DNA of Palace has always been over the years, and that kind of where they are in South London is that kind of street footballer. And they've signed a lot of the standout young players from the Championship in the last couple of years, and Eze, who's obviously recovering from that injury, and Michael Elise, and they're just a flair team to watch. And Edouard, coming from Celtic, has worked for them, and he again strikes as a Palace player. And I'm really impressed by them this year, and I'm delighted for someone like Vieira, because it's very easy to sit from afar and see he got sacked at Nice and it didn't really work for him. And it was a massive risk by Palace, and the start of the season would have, because they've been unlucky. They haven't got the results their performances might have merited, but to go to Man City is a bit of a statement win.
Yeah, and it actually reminds me a small bit on a lesser scale. Obviously, he's done so well with what was already there, and the defensive structure in there not too dissimilar to when Wenger came in all those years ago in '96. And he sees, right, I have a back five here, let's build from there. I think he's done that so well, hence being so quick. I had Palace to get relegated this season, so just hold the hands up there and get that out nice and early. And apologies to Patrick Vieira, club captain, future Arsenal manager, I hope. My sincere apologies to you, Patrick. Also to Steve Parish, who is in the When Eagles Dare documentary on Amazon Prime. That is well worth a watch. Just purely for Ian Holloway content. It's absolutely incredible. And we have a last comment to Ollie out. Yeah, lads, there's a few years Ollie out. I might do a little Instagram of the two lads saying Ollie out there back to back. That's the social sort of for tomorrow. Sean, thanks very much.
Cheers, Daniel.
For those listening, we really appreciate support on the podcast. We'll be doing it once a week, usually a weekend review. We'd love to get a few interviews. If you have any ideas to the show, let us know at Tackling Sport, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I forgot one, Facebook, Twitter. Twitter is the last one, and obviously LinkedIn as well. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel for free, and do like this video as well. But yeah, we'll see you next Monday. Have a great week. Enjoy all the sport, Champions League, Premier League, and we'll chat.